is he into me? How do I know he likes me? And the huge signs that show that, yeah, this guy really likes you. Thank you so much for joining us again on Second Act TV. Once again, welcoming back one of my favorite guests, our very own guy, Robert Manni. Thank you for being here again.
My pleasure. How are you, Silka? Good to see you.
I'm glad you're here for another conversation that will hopefully give some clarity to what us women stress about back on the dating scene after 50. The topic today, is he into me? How do I know he likes me? And the huge signs that show that, yeah, this guy really likes you. And I say that a little facetiously because it sounds like high school stuff, even junior high school stuff. The fact of the matter is, when we're back on the dating scene, especially if we've been off for a long time, we do go back to that mentality.
I agree 100% because it's like high school keeps going after high school. The things that changes is the technology and some of the cultural things. People want relationships. Humans are humans, and some of the things we learned early on we carry with us. Now, if you've been in a relationship, maybe you've been married and maybe your partner passed or you got divorced or you had another divorce, you had kids and everything, you go back in the dating scene. What do you remember about dating? You remember when the last time you dated, which might have been 30 years ago. So you got to start from there. And obviously it's important to adapt, but you're going to start from a place that you're comfortable with.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so let's look at the big signs that he's into you. He's the one who's trying to make the plans, that he's taking the initiative to make plans. And that sounds so obvious, but I think this is where women sometimes get in their way because we try to make plans. Talk to me about the whole making plans thing.
Well, in today's dating culture for the younger crowd, there's chilling and hanging out and texting back and forth, and not making a plan is the way to make a plan. But if you're from our generation, making plan means making a plan. It means you're invested and you want to step up and if you're a guy, take the lead and say, hey, I'm thinking of you. I heard what you said about you like Japanese food. I have a great sushi place. Maybe you haven't tried it yet. And that's a really good sign. So if a guy's taking the initiative, that's a really good thing. And that doesn't mean that the other person can't say, hey, I've been there before. How about this other place? And so for a guy, you have to be open to, okay, I took the initiative. Maybe she's been there before. We're going to try her place, her suggestion. That's cool. Don't overreact to that. Because sometimes guys get deflated because here I am, I'm stepping up, I'm taking the initiative, and I get shot down before we even go out on a date. So everybody's got to be careful with each other's feelings, and everybody also has to say, hey, let's not take things too seriously. Dating's supposed to be a fun sport. Let's let things happen organically and see where they go, and not take everything so personally.
Right. Yeah. Again, there are so many other little things associated with him doing it first, especially, as you said, alluded to in our culture today, that sometimes it's confusing. So again, if he's making plans first, yes, this guy likes you.
Absolutely.
He's always in a good mood around you. I found this interesting, that he says here, guys want to date women they feel good around. In fact, the biggest criteria, when I ask you whether you agree with this, for whether a guy wants to be with a woman isn't how she looks, but how he makes or she makes him feel.
I would think it's a combination of those two things. I think you have to have, if you're a guy, you're visual. Not that women aren't visual, but there has to be a physical attraction. And then how the other person makes you feel is incredibly important, whether you're a man, a woman, or whatever. It's important. You want to feel good around that other person. So I think that's a very important component. So if the person in question feels good around you, that's a really good sign, and vice versa. Now, would you want to be with somebody with somebody who you don't feel good around? I mean, come on. I don't think so.
Yeah. And, not everybody has brings the same level of joy or, to the table. Some people are just by nature a little bit more subdued. So don't read into that he's not, feeling good or having fun or in a good mood. I mean, you kind of have to judge that. But yeah, if they're in a good mood, if you feel good together, yeah, that's a great sign that something
Absolutely.
more is going on here. He makes an effort with you. What do we mean by that? He makes an effort to do, I suppose, what you like, what notices what you don't like.
Let's fold that under the umbrella of paying attention,
Okay.
which women seem to be, in my opinion, very good at paying attention. They notice the little details, how you're feeling today, little things. Oh, I like that shirt. A lot of times, guys pay attention to themselves. And the more I think a man can learn how to pay attention to the subtleties of a woman or his partner and their details of their day,
Mm-hmm.
how it's going, the mood, everything. You can't just plow through and expect everybody to be exactly where you are. You have to
Mm-hmm.
have some sensitivity there. And the more a guy can dial that up, I think the better off he's going to be and the better off the relationship will be, because I think women really, in my experience, really appreciate when you pay attention. And if you don't, you get some warnings and then sometimes you get blindsided and it's like, see you
Mm-hmm.
later, buddy.
Yeah, I agree. The effort, and that's actually good advice for men. I mean, this is for women, the segment, but that is really great advice. Show a little effort, and my goodness, that can go a long, long way.
Yeah,
If I
yeah,
mean, if you want to, if you like this woman, yeah, show a little effort.
yeah.
Here's one that I thought was really interesting. I never really thought about it. He's willing to fight with you. And I don't mean physical, knock him down, drag him out, fight him, but argue, maybe argue would be the better word, or argue or disagree with you about something that's, that he disagrees with about, that you're worth going into an uncomfortable situation momentarily and come up better at the other end. But the whole idea that you're worth arguing with, I find that interesting.
Yeah, I would say conceptually that's a good thing. But you don't want to make it like you argue about every little thing
Right.
and being like antagonistic type of argument, but
Mm-hmm.
having a willing to discuss different things where you have different points of view in a respectful way, I think is important because it's going to be an indicator as to how your communication is going to go moving forward. So I would rephrase this person's sentiment about willing to argue with you. It's really, to me, it's not about arguing, it's about learning how to communicate
Mm-hmm.
in topics that you may not be in initial agreement on.
Yeah, agree. And I think that's a big misconception in relationships, period, is, and it goes off the point maybe perhaps a little bit because we're talking early on here, but so many people believe, that if you have a great relationship if you never argue, never fight. Oh yeah, they're just great. Oh my God, they never have a cross word. Those are the relationships I would be leery of, because if you never
Right.
disagree on anything, then you're not communicating. Again, I'm not suggesting, like what you said, would argue about every little thing, but arguing about important things or things that are important to you, that's a good sign that there's real connect. I think that there's real connection.
Well, you're going to have arguments in every meaningful relationship,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's family,
Yeah.
whether it's relationship, loving relationships and partnership. It's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's how you process that. If do you walk away feeling angry and bitter, or do you walk away,
Yeah.
deflated, or do you just cross it up
Yeah.
to okay, tomorrow's another day, or we'll move on to the next topic? Because you can have arguments all the time with your partner and still be very much in love and have a successful relationship. It's
Yeah.
a matter of how you process them, I think, is what's important, because humans by nature are going to agree on everything.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He wants to make future plans. And here we're not talking about, after 2 dates, he wants to marry you. But he's making plans into the near future, maybe a couple of weeks down the road, there's a concert, something that indicates that he plans to be around, for a bit, or that he wants to go further. And I think that's sometimes it's not recognized as much as it needs to be, or the other way around. If he's not making future plans, that's not acknowledged, that there may be a lack of interest that you need to pay attention to as well.
I would agree with all of that. I wouldn't take it too negatively though if he's not bringing up things 3 weeks from now, because some people just kind of are day to
Mm-hmm.
day. But if he is, I think that's a really good sign because he's being proactive. I think what it's indicative of is that he likes spending time with you, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the most important aspect there. Because if he likes spending time with you, then he's planning more activities to spend more time together, and that's a
Yeah.
really good thing.
Yeah. It reminds me of when I first started dating Paul, because at first we had the most slow moving relationship. And I think that's why it's lasted this long, because I was one of those, the chemistry and boom and explodes and done. But the first time that he said, you know what, in a month from now, there's this thing is coming up. It's like six. And I realized he's talking about like 4 to 6 weeks down the road. And then that was a sign that he's definitely into me. And that felt really good. And so if you're getting that, yay.
I agree.
It does feel good. He's willing to compromise. Boy, I think that's a big one for men. Willing to compromise, that he doesn't have to be right. This is not all about him, not all about me. He's willing to, at least see your side and meet you halfway or part of the way. That's a good sign.
I think that's not only a good sign, it's incredibly important for just
Mm-hmm.
even beyond relationships, how we interact with each other. I was dealing with somebody on my trip. It was an in-law, and this individual was always had to be right. There was not
Mm-hmm.
any other side. So at a certain point, we were discussing economics, and I said, well, I guess we just disagree. That's cool. And he
Mm-hmm.
could not process that I could disagree because there was
Yeah.
this way, and that was
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
And there are people like that. I didn't realize that some people just cannot compromise. And then I thought
Mm-hmm.
about some of my friends where you never hear, hey, I was wrong about that, or I'm sorry, whatever. A lot of people just dig in
Mm-hmm.
and they don't want to, for whatever reason, they feel it's a sign of weakness to
Yeah.
compromise or show that they may have something to learn or they're wrong. And to me, it's a sign of strength, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a really good sign for a relationship that you want to hear another opinion, that you can meet halfway, that you can agree to disagree. This is
Mm-hmm.
really good. It's about
Yeah.
communication. And if you can't do that, it's going to make for a lonely relationship because you're going to get in your separate corners when
Mm-hmm.
you disagree with something. And obviously, if you're going to spend quality time together, there's going to be things you disagree about, and you don't want those to be deal breakers.
Right, exactly. The other thing, I guess, to keep in mind, if maybe somebody's really into you, but again, to your point, what you alluded to, if they can't compromise, do you want to be in that? Do you want to be in that relationship? You know, uh, again, I think of Paul, that he is very set in his ways, but he will adjust if need be. He wants to do what he wants to do. But he's also respectful of boundaries. And that's one thing that women, I think, if we're talking to women, they need to understand. Do have your boundaries, but have them be reasonable. For example, he's a big golf. You brought up, Robert, one time that you ruined a relationship because all you wanted to do was play golf on the
Right.
weekends.
Yeah.
And that could be Paul. And we're living together now and it's different. But when we weren't, and we're driving a long way to go meet each other, it's like, do if you're going to play golf all weekend, then really there's no reason for us to have a relationship. He respected that. And that was really, really important to me. I don't want to feel like, and not letting the guy play golf because trust me, he gets a lot in, but that was a really good sign of compromise. So anyway, lastly here, you can be yourself around him and he's still into you, that you're authentic, that you feel comfortable being yourself.
I would take that to the next level, which would be he actually encourages you to be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's super important because you don't want the woman to listen. You don't want her to change for you who she is. You want her to
Mm-hmm.
be the best version of herself.
Right.
but you don't want to change who she is for you, because she is who she
Mhm.
is. And you got to work with that. You got to live with that. You got to love that. And if you don't, then look elsewhere, because you want the person, whether it's your girlfriend, your partner, your friend, you want
Right.
them to have the freedom to be themselves. I think that's an incredibly important thing, and it shows respect, and it
Yeah.
also shows that you love the person for who they are. Now, can they be the best version of themselves? Can they improve certain
Mhm.
areas? Of course.
Yeah, no, right. Well, and again, to your point, is if the man, if he feels totally comfortable being himself,
Right.
and then the two of you, he realizes that you like who he is. He doesn't have to walk on eggshells. And the woman, of course, like you said, be authentic. And so many women, just on a little side note, and I'm pointing at myself here too. We bring masks to an early relationship. We want to be who the guy wants us to be in many respects. Not anything that's necessarily emotionally wrong, but we just want it to work. And oh, he likes
Right.
that. Well, I like that. I can like that. So if you can end up being your authentic selves, and you love, both of you love being together in that state, that's really the ultimate, I think, to a lasting relationship.
I agree completely.
Yeah. Well, again, lots of stuff to think about. Again, it sounds perhaps a little juvenile, but when you think about it, you realize, especially back on the dating scene, you haven't thought about this for a while, and how are the points that we brought up today, are they affecting, certain relationships that you're going through right now? Again, I love to hear the comments on what does work, what doesn't work, what you think some of the huge signs are. So, Robert, is there anything else you want to say before we close out on the segment?
Yeah, I think it's important, even though it's tangential to the discussion. I think that one of the keys to successful relationships, and I keep thinking this more and more, is that we have to encourage our partners both have personal growth
Mm-hmm.
separate from the relationship that adds to the overall relationship. Because as soon as one person starts to feel stifled or isn't
Mm-hmm.
growing at the same pace, it can become problematic. So I think both people growing, both people blossoming, and then bringing it together is a really good thing.
I love that. Let's go with that. Robert, thank you. As always, we will link to all of your information to your book, The Guys Guide to Love, to Guys Radio, that is now all over the world on UK Health Radio. And I look forward to having another conversation soon on Second Act TV.
Thank you, Silka. Thank you, everybody.